Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this really unique session. I'm Uzi. I'm the CEO of SOSA. We are an open innovation company working with large organizations from around the world, helping them identify and implement technologies to improve their business and services. And with me today are Mark Budd, Head of Innovation, UK Operations, Zurich Insurance, and Netta Rozy, CTO and co-founder of Parametrix. And we also have the SOSA team with us. You might see one of them if my connection fails as a backup. So close to 300 people have registered for this event from all over the world. Looking at the list, I see partners and colleagues from all over the United States. I received many messages that timing was difficult and that our colleagues await the recording of this session. We have attendees from all over Asia, Europe, Central and Latin America, a mix of innovators, corporates, entrepreneurs, VCs, and so on. Today's topic is more relevant than ever because piloting and collaboration between corporates and startups was always a challenging and a fascinating topic. But now, in COVID-19 mode, with no traveling and very little face-to-face interaction, it is even more fascinating to hear and to learn how this process can be successfully managed remotely. So this actually all started with the Zurich Innovation Championship, a technology-driven startup competition held in some 68 countries, and Parametrix is the winner in the UK. And following that, they are now running a pilot remotely. We will hear from Mark about the reverse ideation process, and from Netta and Mark about running a pilot remotely and how it can really work. And with that, we will now start the session. I invite all of you to use the Q&A button on the screen to submit your questions. And I promise to do my best to address all the questions. So let's start with a short introduction. Netta and Mark, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Netta. Hey, Mark.
Morning, guys.
How are you?
I'm good.
Great. So we'll start with a short introduction. We'll start with Netta. Can you please share with us a few words about yourself and some background from your end on the Zurich Innovation Championship?
Yeah, hi, my name is Netta. I'm co-founder and CTO at Parametrix. And at Parametrix, we specialize in downtime insurance. We provide insurance coverage for companies when they experience financial loss that is triggered by a downtime event of their third-party service provider. For example, cloud services, if your cloud provider goes down, we provide compensation after the downtime event. It's part of business interruption insurance and P&C insurance, and it suits big and small companies. We met Mark through the Zurich Innovation Championships. It's, I'm sure Mark will explain more in depth, but an innovation championship that Zurich runs. It's one of the best innovation platforms that we've seen an insurer put together. It's very unique in that they put a lot of priority on this championship, and we were able to meet and be in a room full of Zurich executives when we presented our startup.
All right. Thank you, Netta. And Mark, let's hear a few words, some background about yourself and Zurich and the championship and the context for this project.
Sure. So morning, everybody. I'm Mark Budd. I head up innovation for Zurich in the UK. We met the Parametrix guys through our Innovation World Championship. This is the second time we run the championship. The process is basically we ask startups to apply with certain countries of Zurich. We had 160 odd applicants in the UK. We whittled that down to 6. We had a finals day in the UK, as Netta said, with our UK exec. Those guys, we looked at it through lots of different lenses, and Parametrix was the ultimate winners. So now they're our UK winners. They go off to play in an EMEA round, which is in June, where the EMEA countries play off against each other. Then we'll have an EMEA finalist, a LATAM finalist, a North America finalist. And then there's a global final in September. The winners of maybe more one winner. In previous years, we have more than one winner. They get the backing of Zurich, the marketing of Zurich, with the full intent of running a live pilot.
Incredible. Okay, thank you. Let's get right to it. And if you can both share, please describe the process of planning and working together, right? You were pitching to a room full of people maybe. And so there was one modus operandi, and then COVID-19 came, and how this has changed since. positively and negatively, perhaps. Maybe some things, some sessions, some conversations are better remotely, and some of them are better face to face.
I'm easy.
So
Netta, do you
Mark,
want me?
yeah,
I'm easy. Do you want me to go?
Mark,
Do
you
you want
can
me to go
start.
first?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So you know, well, back at the end of January when Parametrix were announced as our winners, we planned to do things as we normally do it, which would have been a host of face-to-face sessions with post-its and stickies and various members of our business, ultimately ending up in some customer testing. It would have been a lot more hands-on. To be honest, it probably face-to-face interaction and collaboration, if full honesty, would have probably been one of our cornerstones, and we'd have held on to that quite tightly before the recent events. So we found that we had to start running these sessions remotely. The trick with running these things is to do a lot of the prep work up front, really spend the time explaining to people how the session's going to go, what you want the outcomes to be. We found that giving people lots of breaks to do things is really, really important as well. So normally you might give someone a load of post-its and say, well, you've got 5 minutes to put your post-its up on a wall and we'll take a look at them. We'd probably say now, go and have 15, 20 minutes, go and have a think about it, make yourself a drink, stay away. So the day and the process is slightly more drawn out than it is. However, what we found is that people who have been given a bit of extra time to go away and reflect, the depth of the insight and the quality of the insight that we'll be getting back on face value seems to be far greater than it would be normally. So it was kind of counterintuitive, but the depth and the richness of the information that we've got was arguably, we still don't really know, but we think it's probably because we gave people a bit more time to think and go and reflect on stuff. Not everybody wants to be able to respond in the moment. So yeah, I mean, I will let Netta jump in a sec, but from wanting to do it in the very normal fashion to having to do it remotely was a bit scary to start with. But yeah, with practice and planning and using some of the tooling that we've got, and if you give people some time, we're finding that you get just as good output. It's incredible.
That's very interesting. So, you know, if we had a way in real life to stop video and just hit mute, it could have been a useful feature in real life, right? And one of the benefits of this situation. Neta, how does it look from your end? Do you also see value in the remote work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, prior to COVID-19, we had planned to travel to London multiple times to meet with the Zurich team. And unfortunately, we couldn't go ahead and do that. And apart from the straightforward solutions of using, Microsoft Teams and video conferencing, I think what really made it the big difference was that Mark's team structured the process very well. And like Mark said, we were very prepared ahead of time before the sessions themselves. And then the sessions themselves were very efficient. Mark can attest to how it is compared to face-to-face. We only had the opportunity to see it through video conferencing, but we saw amazing results from our end.
Yeah, amazing. What you said, Mark, in the beginning, that usually, like in the old normal, you used to be like intuitively more hands-on. Do you feel that such a process requires more trust? Because do you feel less hands-on, or you just found the new tools to be hands-on in a different way?
To be honest, I think it's probably less about how we feel about it, and what's interesting is how the participants feel about it. Maybe one of the reasons we get some of the richness in the data is because people aren't in a room, perhaps with their boss, feeling like they need to say the right things. So it doesn't affect us too much. We're quite happy to roll with it, but we are completely reliant on the inputs of people to get the outputs that we need from the workshop. So the people, Netta was one of them, have fed back and said it worked for them. And we can only really look at the data we've got, which I keep saying because I'm quite surprised about it, is seemingly better than we would normally have got.
Yeah, incredible. Okay, so let's continue and speak a little bit about the process, the reverse ideation process. What does it mean for Zurich? What does it mean for Parametrix as a methodology, and how does it compare or differ from your typical work processes of open innovation?
Do you want me to go, Netta?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
So how we would normally deliver propositions at Zurich, we would start with a problem and we would ideate around that problem, look at what potential solutions might look like. We go through a process of validating desirability, feasibility, viability through a fairly small process. So we normally start with a problem. However, in this instance, by the very nature of the competition, people are coming to us with solutions. So we adopted what we've termed reverse ideation, where you start with the solution, try to unwind what problems might be, whether they're customer problems or internal operational problems, and rebuild it back up from that point. So we've got to try and unwind the solution back to a problem and then start our process again. It was quite an unusual thing to do. We probably have done it 1 or 2 times before, and I would be interested in Netta's thoughts on it, but my view would probably be, by doing that, you're validating what you're seeing. If nothing else, you're at least validating what you've seen. And more often than not, you'll probably make some tweaks when the startups and we really understand some of the detail of our local circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. We have never worked with reverse ideation. And when we founded Parametrix, it was because we identified a problem in the market and worked to find an adequate solution. But what reverse ideation with Zurich has taught us is that having a flexible offering of your capabilities is very important, and being able to adapt and change your solution to one that fits the corporate's needs is very important. And Zurich themselves know what's best for them, and we had to adapt and change in order to really create an amazing product.
That's interesting. Would you say, Mark, that there is an element to this that companies many times can offer their technology or part of the technology instead of thinking in terms of, hey, there's a problem, this is their solution A to Z, how can we sell it to you?
It's a tricky one, because if they can't find the problem, the sales pitch is quite hard when they say, I can help you with an unspecified problem. So I can see it from both sides, that you've kind of got to hedge your bets as a startup to say, this is the kind of problem that we're trying to solve. But the reality is we probably need a capability. We're probably not looking for an end-to-end solution. So that capability, through the course of conversation, might need to change some short directions, which is, to be fair, which is one of the benefits of us working with startups, because we tend to find that they come with that agility. If we work with more traditional technology providers, those products really are bundled up and you don't have any opportunity to influence those roadmaps.
Yeah, we had a question. Maybe Mark, if you can, or Netta, from your perspective, of course, if you can, just in a couple of minutes, further explain the concept of reverse ideation. Maybe that just a question from the crowd.
Netta, do you want to do it? Yeah, you go.
Yeah, I can explain it from what we've learned from Zurich, because it is something that Zurich has implemented. What reverse ideation is taking an existing product or an existing solution and finding a way to fit it into these large corporates, and being able to adapt it for these corporates' needs, because really, like we said earlier, Zurich knows what's best for them, and startups have this amazing ability to innovate with technology and create amazing pieces of technology, and be agile and adaptive, and working together with Zurich, and having that ability to change and to adapt to their needs is really the strength here, and what reverse ideation, in our opinion, is about.
Yeah.
Just to add to a couple of bits to that, the sort of things we would tend to do would be to look at that solution through different lenses. So we'd look at it through an operational lens. So how, given what we've seen, how would that operate, and how would our operations need to change, or how would the product need to change in order to be able to operate that particular proposition? We probably look at it through a distribution lens. So quite quickly we're saying, yeah, okay, I see the product, let's unwind that. How would I get that to the customer? Pricing is something that we're something that we need to really get under the skin of. And marketing, so how would customers become aware of it? What is the thing that would make them show interest in it? So they're all the sorts of things we need to think about, and we take that product back a step. We start looking through those lenses. Match, where there's a match, great. Where there's some challenges, we either need to think about changing our processes, or perhaps some of the technology. So it really is an end-to-end. Sorry, it really is an end-to-end thing. It's not just the thing that we see. It's much broader than that. And how do we operate it? How do we distribute it? How do we make money out of it?
Yeah, very interesting. To follow up on that, I think that this is a very stressful. These are very stressful times for everybody and for startups, obviously as well. And we'll discuss this a little bit from both perspective and from Neta perspective as a co-founder and CDO. And at least the music that we are hearing from the demand side and from startups in this period till maybe the situation stabilizes, is that tech companies needs to be much more sharper with thinking about what problems they actually solve rather than what they developed. So, Mark, in this situation, do you see a different balance between reverse ideation and like the use case driven open innovation, or maybe not? And how do you see it?
I think the trick with all these things is it's really hard when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it. You need to be really, really specific around the problem that you're trying to solve. And I think those problems, even if they look similar on face value, would be nuanced in lots of different organizations. So I think from a startup perspective, you can work hard to try and get under the skin of what you think those themes are. The reality is you probably need to form relationships with the insurers to try and work out what some of those nuances are. So I guess my advice would be, if you've got friendly insurers that you know or people that you can contact with, use them and bounce your ideas off them rather than come into them with a pre-prepared pitch that inevitably is probably not going to be exactly what they're looking for. So if you frame it in a way that we have a capability that we think could be used like this, it kind of leaves the door open a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So mixing the two approaches and just creating the right conversation around the capabilities.
Yeah, because I think often we see the capabilities, and I totally appreciate that there's lots of technical complexity in some of these things, but really we just need to understand so what does that mean for us? What are we going to do with it? How we keep coming back to the same points, but how are we going to distribute it? How are we going to operate it?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's now speak a little bit about the current situation and in your perspective, what do you think should be the main actions businesses need to take now to adapt to the current situation, but also to start preparing for the aftermath, both operationally, but maybe even deeper than that into their products and business models, and maybe Neta, you can share your insights as the co-founder, CDO, leading a company in these crazy times.
Yeah, absolutely. They are in fact crazy times, and there had to be some changes in our work processes. And as a startup, you have to try to predict how global changes are going to affect your business in order to be ahead of the curve. What COVID-19 has done is to show us how big of an impact downtime has on businesses, whether physical shutdown or technological shutdown. We're seeing an exponential adoption of third-party services and the reliance on them. And as businesses rely more and more on third-party services, we know that there's going to be more demand for solutions to mitigate that risk of downtime and business interruption. And that's something that we're working towards. That's something we know that Zurich is very aware of as well, and that is brought up a lot during our conversations with them. And it's something that I think we're both very passionate in solving in the end of the day, to bring the best end user experience and the best value we can for our customers.
Thank you. Mark, from your perspective, what like the main immediate actions that businesses need to take, whether they're incumbents or tech companies?
So I can from our perspective, to be brutally honest, the first week or two of being locked down and everyone being at home was really about stabilizing the business, making sure people could work at home. I have to say we've done a great job in that space. We're really proud of how quickly we got vast majority of our people working at home. So I guess that was the first couple of weeks, was making sure the business was still stood up. The sort of last 3 or 4 weeks since then have probably been more about establishing a rhythm, whether that's the work or people. We're all trying to get used to the new normal, which I think we probably are there now. And it's probably now-ish that we're starting to think about what happens when we come out the back of this. There are questions about resiliences for businesses. Can they operate in this world? But I think what's probably most interesting for insurers will be maybe the change in need or the relative priority of need. So I think we will see different sets of customer needs. We'll see different sets of customer behavior that we will need to design propositions and make sure we've got services that support those new needs coming out the back of COVID.
That's very interesting. We actually held a demo day on customer behavior analytics about 2 weeks ago. There was a lot of traction, and it's like maybe the less obvious, like, digital health and cybersecurity are the high flyers now. That's clear. But again, customer behavior, customers are at home. They behave differently. And I'm not speaking about risk profiles, right? About people not riding the cars, which is the core business of insurance, right? I'm speaking about what do they need? How can you better serve them? So we see customer behavior analytics becoming a vertical or an area in high demand. That's very interesting. Neta, in your business, did you change like very fundamental things or in the way you operate, like sales, for example? I know that even if you're a SaaS company, right, eventually the face-to-face element and people take the planes and they, how does that work in the current mode?
Yeah, so we were very lucky in that we were able to move our entire operation digitally. Not all businesses and types of businesses are so fortunate with this situation. And even before, prior to COVID-19, we were working with companies from all around the world. So we were used to video conferencing, although we still believe that there's no replacement to the first initial face-to-face meeting, especially with partners to establish that close connection. With sales, again, we are seeing high demand for downtime and business interruption products, especially from an insurance perspective. I think the situation has really highlighted how important those solutions are for a business to have. So we are seeing a lot of demand for that. We're seeing a lot of education in the market regarding those types of products. And it's really a matter of catching up and releasing those products to the market for when things go back to normal and we prepare for back to normal business as usual. I think the biggest word of advice that we had as a startup is turn your camera on when you're video conferencing. Try and still have that face-to-face connection, even if it's not physically in the same room, and try and encourage the other side to do the same.
Yeah, we are happy to contribute the SOSA background to the entire industry, just for the feeling of it. We have a question here. Thank you for that, Neta and Mark. We have a question here for Mark. It's a tech company which is talking about insurance companies, banks, and wealth management firms around the world that are already searching for execution tools. So probably actually tools to deploy right now to deliver remote advice, to attract new clients, and so on. How do you prepare for this transformation? And do you see a real practical acceleration in the process of adapting such tools, whether it's, I don't know, remote underwriting, remote claims, remote...
Yeah, I mean, so probably more than ever, we're getting contacted by startups that are telling us that they can do things for us in the remote world, which is great that we're surfacing these things. If I'm honest, right now, it's so difficult to see the wood for the trees. We're trying to manage our own business. But I back to earlier, I think we're starting to approach that period where we're starting to plan for the future. So tech startups that can help us with needs around remote working or remote customer bases or completely different use of their assets will definitely be of interest. The trick is pretty much, as I was saying before, though, is really trying to be clear about what problem you are trying to solve and what's the hook for us. And my advice, again, I'm open to people on this call to reach out to me, but it's really about that conversation and understanding the organization you're trying to put a solution into. And that I don't see that pattern changing. The types of solutions we see might.
Yeah. So you're open for conversations. Obviously, would you say that open more than before on these specific areas?
Well, in these specific areas, absolutely, because they're just more relevant. But I think that the difficulty will be we're going to get lots of these approaches. So how to startups, how would you differentiate yourselves from another one? I don't know. That's tricky.
Yeah, yeah. So on your end, it's the curation part, because obviously time is of essence, and on the tech companies, they need to be very sharp in how they communicate their offering. And
Yeah, and
and USP.
it's really difficult in the current climate. But if you can form and establish a relationship with somebody at an insurer or a bank, wherever you're trying to get to, that is gonna make it a lot easier for you than rather than a cold call approach.
Yeah, yeah. Let's speak. Let's get back now to the real piloting and collaboration aspect. And the question is, we'll start with Mark. Maybe for future engagement with startups, will the lessons learned from this period of remote working flow into future practices? How do you think this will change the collaboration processes in the future? Will it be something hybrid, maybe? And obviously specifically when working with startups.
Yeah, Netta and I talked about this yesterday. So uh, let's be honest, when all this is a distant memory, there will be more face-to-face interaction, but there probably won't be as much. I think what we'll find is we'll reserve those face-to-face interactions for the real high-value conversations. Some of the work that we've done remotely with Netta and the guys, now we know what we know, we'd probably do that anyway. We're probably learning to give people more time to reflect. Sometimes we would, we'd think we'd nailed it if we'd done it all in a day. Actually, maybe give yourself 3 days and have some of that reflection time. Maybe run a couple of sessions before you have the face to face. So you've really ironed out some of the creases, and when you get the face to face conversations, it will be the real value ones. So I think we'll probably still see a hybrid, but I think the mix will change, and probably we'll have a much clearer understanding about where the value in those face to face interactions is.
Yeah, Netta, do you agree? Would you embrace that from the supply side? Would you embrace that? And I think that's the right mix.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it has to be a hybrid. It can't all be digital, because there is value to face-to-face, and that's always been a priority for us. But there's a lot that can be said to preparation done remotely. So if the preparation phase is remote, and then you get together and have a from there, and we've learned that through working with Zurich and seeing that we get a lot of value from these workshops that are remote due to the situation.
Yeah, and just digging deeper in the face-to-face element, because now this is a real challenge. So we know that successful partnerships have always been thought to be built on good face-to-face relationships and communication. I guess we're not challenging this statement now, right? The face-to-face is still needed in crucial points within the project. I think that now the biggest challenge would be how to start a relationship remotely and create this good feeling and this good chemistry that's perhaps a little more difficult to create on the screen. How can we continue to build successful relationships without meeting in person? From your end, Neta, what would you communicate? And Mark, what would you want to see? And how can you contact stand out and just try to pass their, I would even say organizational culture, because eventually it's all about relationships, right? Technology is great, but it's all about relationships that make this process successful. So,
yeah, absolutely. When we work with a large organization, we try and find the team members that are passionate about solving the same problem that you're solving. With Zurich, it was Mark and his team, and we were lucky that we did get the initial face-to-face. But if we didn't have that opportunity, then really communicating what the problem is, what you're trying to solve, and your capabilities, be it technological or adapting, and really show your strengths. And then together with those people that are passionate about solving the same problem within this large corporation, you piece together those capabilities, and you really create a product that solves that problem that you're passionate about solving.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree, and I'd add to that. And I think what's probably really important is to try and find some time, maybe outside those commercial conversations to try and understand the individuals you're talking to. So maybe I know people, teams all around the world are having sort of virtual coffee mornings, but even that type of approach, if we can find out a bit more about you, what your family situation is, in a slightly more relaxed environment, we find a bit more about the people. And more often than not, the relationship is probably about the people than it is about the commercial aspects anyway. So the more opportunities you can find to interact outside the scheduled calls, so maybe you give someone a call for 5 minutes or have these tea coffee mornings, I think that it will probably help.
Yeah, that's a very good tip, especially given the remote mode where you described perhaps a more prepared or structured sessions, much less downtime, right? So we don't have that 5-minute walk to the coffee station or things like that, and we probably need to proactively create those moments in order to make up for the lack of face-to-face time. So that's a very good tip.
And that includes having kids and pets and whatever else you got running around the house. I think in these times that's important to see that everybody's a human being.
Yeah. So we don't have to lock them. Can I?
Well, mine are locked up in the garden.
Before the session. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to let them out after this. They're cold. They've been out there all night.
Yeah. Okay. With COVID-19 and regardless of the COVID-19 mode, what do you think? What do you believe is the critical element or the secret sauce for a successful partnership between insurers or corporates in general and startups? Again, a fascinating topic before this reality, even more challenging now. And obviously this will somehow get into some hybrid modes. So very much relevant. So Mark, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think for me, the partnership between the insurer and the startup, and I really do mean a partnership rather than the insurer dominating the startup. The best relationships for me, we have customers and brand, and the startups normally have agility and technical capability. And it's about making those two things knit together where there's a win in it for both teams. So I don't see those dynamics changing at all. But back to the previous point, the relationship thing is really important. So when we had our 6 finalists in the UK and we were deciding who we thought we should win, absolutely one of the really important criteria was, could we work with these guys? Do we see, do we think we'll be able to connect with them and work with them? And that's still really important. So I don't massively see those dynamics changing, other than all the obvious stuff we kind of just talked about.
Yeah. Netta, from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges or the secret sauce to really succeed in approaching? And okay, so that was through the competition, but you're running a business. I guess you have additional channels as well to really reach the right people in large organizations. What is your tip?
Yeah, so again, find the people that are passionate in solving the problem that you're solving. It cannot work without that. Showcase all of your abilities and not just the final product that you're trying to push. Also show how with these capabilities and these abilities, you're able to adapt to the needs of the larger corporate. So you need the technology and the ability to be agile. And then from the corporate, you need the customer base and the brand and that market insight that these large corporates like Zurich have. And I think the last thing is really show that you're willing to work hard, research a lot before, show that you're willing to learn, and that you really want to create the best product for your users, for the end users, and only with a partner that wants and make a change.
Yeah, you're breaking out a little. If you can get maybe closer to the modem, you're breaking out sometimes. But we got a message. Thank you very much for that. And just to address 2 points from our attendees. So one is the will to demonstrate the product to you guys, Mark. So again, to all the people who joined us today, we're happy to facilitate an introduction. We'll be sending an email after this session with the recording, with our contact details, and please reach out to us, and we'll facilitate the conversation. There's another question with a smiley. How do you find these passionate people? Okay, so obviously it's all about the people and the relationships and the great work that people and teams like Mark and his team are doing in Zurich. Okay, so as we get closer to the end of the session, I invite our attendees to submit their questions or comments if they have any. And Mark and Netta, one last piece of advice that you want to share with the people listening to us from all over the world? Mark, let's start with you.
I think stay positive, use tools, don't frighten, lean on your networks. You probably all know people, you all probably know someone who knows somebody. So now more than ever is perhaps a time to use some of those things. And if you're feeling yourself in a moment of downtime and what feels like you're struggling with sight of where you're going to go with that, try and use that time wisely as a bit of peace and a bit of time to think. It's a rare opportunity if you get it. So make the most of it and stay positive, I think.
Amen. Netta?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything Mark said, and just be open-minded and find ways to adapt and pivot fast to the market needs. You never know what's going to happen in the market. This situation has proved that. And it's really, if you can adapt fast and pivot and know what the market needs, then that's an advantage to your business.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that on my end and what we see at SOSA, I think that for the tech companies, I think that listening and fast, these would be the two keywords for what they should do, because everything is changing. And by the way, we see incredible technologies from other verticals pivoting, taking, again, like you said, Mark, the capabilities, and very fast in 2 weeks rolling out solutions for COVID-19 use cases. Incredible stuff, and it works, because what we hear on the other side, on the demand side, is that there is huge demand for technology. Again, the word fast is true for the other side as well, for the demand side. And to comply, to react fast, it's clear that solutions need to be sourced from the outside into the organization. And we really see the role of innovation leaders in organization becoming a central role, a very important place on the central stage. Maybe even more than before. I'm sure you feel this, Mark, and we hear this from our corporate clients. And all right. Oh, so the Q&A button jumped. Let's see. What about in a situation where language is challenging? Should there be a translator in the online session? Yeah, actually, yeah. When we think about building a relationship, if we have to add to that a second or third layer of translation, this will obviously be challenging. What do you think about that, Mark?
I guess the reality is there is a challenge in that. It would have been challenging pre-remote. So whatever techniques you use to get around that normally, don't throw those away and have a think about how you can try and enhance those. I mean, I totally get the point. That's a difficult one.
Yeah.
But don't throw away all the good practices and all the good techniques you had previously. Try and work out a way to just fine-tune those for a slightly different environment, I guess.
Yeah. Netta, from your perspective, would this be a barrier? You would say, okay, let's stick to English-speaking countries or other countries where your operation is familiar with?
No, innovation doesn't have a language. Make the best that you can with what you have. And if you need to have a translator, bring in a translator. It's worth the time, it's worth the effort. And you never know where the next best thing is going to come out of.
Okay. I think we just got a quote of the session. Innovation has no language. Yeah, it was a good one. Okay, we have a couple more questions. But again, we can't take all of them today. So we will be now closing this session. And this was great, really. Very thank you, Netta and Mark, for sharing these invaluable insights around how, the positive side as well. And I think that there are a lot of positive sides in terms of efficiency, structuring the projects well, things that we will take with us to the new hybrid situation, which we all hope will come soon. And We will be sending an email with today's session recording and a link. We launched a special COVID-19 SOSA website with information on our upcoming sessions. And for all of you who joined us today, please feel free to contact us directly with additional questions or requests for introductions or anything else that we can help with. So with that, stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all in the next session. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Netta and Mark.
Thanks all at SOSA.